legitimately 2 weeks away from what I think could be one of the greatest shows that we ever see in our lifetime, and that is Forbidden Door, AEW and New Japan Forbidden Door 2. With what they have already announced in the two matches that have been confirmed this week, Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay for the IWGP United States Championship, which has been building since before January with their match at Wrestle Kingdom 17. We got that match, and then Bryan Danielson versus Kazuchika Okada, which I think should be the main event of the show if there will be no World Championship on the line on that night. Now, you're looking at this show and thinking those two matches could probably be it, and then we're all set, we're all happy, we're all excited. But Tony Khan's got plans. Tony Khan is gonna make this show and build this show to be the biggest show he's ever done. And now we could possibly add yet another dream match to that card for Forbidden Door, as Kenta versus CM Punk is reportedly being discussed for Forbidden Door. This week, New Japan Pro Wrestling star Kenta tweeted that he'd be interested in working Forbidden Door if the money was right. It would appear that the money is right, because Fightful Select learned this week that the plan was for Kenta to work the show. Now, Kenta actually worked Dynamite back in April of 2021, teaming with Kenny Omega to face Jon Moxley and Lance Archer. That was when Jon Moxley was feuding with Kenta over the IWGP United States Championship. Now, Fightful said they haven't heard that Kenta's deal to appear at the show is finalized, but both companies are operating on the assumption that he is. However, the internal discussion and the opponent that they are internally discussing brings a different situation to the overall spectrum of Forbidden Door. They've learned that CM Punk has been discussed as Kenta's opponent, which could help bring closure to the decade-plus back and forth between the two over the GTS, the Go to Sleep. Punk has the GTS as his finish. Obviously, Kenta invented it. That was his move first. The battle of the GTS could be happening at Forbidden Door. Throughout their careers, each man has taken shots at each other, emanating from Punk using Kenta's Go to Sleep. Kenta said recently he no longer cares about that, but wants a lot of money to wrestle CM Punk at Forbidden Door. I mean, on paper, it sounds like a dream match. On paper, it sounds like the closure that the IWC would need for this, because it's talked about almost every single time their names are brought up in the same sentence, especially now with New Japan working for AEW and vice versa, and Punk and Kenta under the same roof, under the same partnership. It would make sense to go and do the match. Now, the thing is, and the most important question out of everything here regarding these discussions, who wins the match? Listen, I know wrestling is a very political landscape. I know Punk and Kenta both going into that match would be very, very weary of losing to the other guy. I don't know who wins that match. If AEW books that match, I could see it being a political nightmare. I could see it being a creative nightmare for both New Japan and AEW. Do they even want to venture down that road with something so political? I remember when House of Glory, I do House of Glory commentary with Solid Monster, and we did Low Key versus Kenta in December of 2022. Now, this was a match that was 17 years in the making from their last match, which happened in Ring of Honor. And I went into this and I told, a little peeling back the curtain here on what I discuss with Jason when we do commentary for these things and we're off camera and away from the microphone. I asked him, who's going to win this match? Who's going to win this match? I just feel like it's going to be a very political landscape when you get something like that happening. And lo and behold, the match went to a no contest. Nobody won the match. Nobody lost the match. So why have the match? 17 years in the making. You're not going to give us a clear-cut winner unless you're doing a rematch. When and where that's going to happen, I don't know. So the same thing would apply here. Who would win the match? Who's going to lay down for the other guy and do business? It's a very sticky situation. Now, you could go the safe route with CM Punk and just put him in a match with Hiroshi Tanahashi, or you could put him in a match with Naito, That would be great. As long as you get Punk on the show, as long as you get Kenta on the show. But Collision is going to be a very interesting situation. June 17th in the main event, where we have Bullet Club Gold in the main event against CM Punk and FTR. So we got Samoa Joe, Jay White, and Juice Robinson, who, by the way, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, is rock hard, Juice Robinson, against CM Punk, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler. Kenta is still a part of Bullet Club. We could see everything that I'm discussing here with Kenta and CM Punk play out on the first Collision in Chicago. It could happen, and that could lead to the match. Or we could see some other Bullet Club members maybe show up and maybe get CM Punk at Forbidden Door. I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting situation to see play out and what Punk is going to do. I believe Punk will be at Forbidden Door. He missed last year's show because of the injury, the foot injury. No doubt in my mind that Tony Khan's going to get CM Punk on Forbidden Door. Easy. Same thing with Kenta. Why would you want Kenta off Forbidden Door? It's going to be a very, very interesting Forbidden Door show. It's going to be great to see how Tony Khan lays out the rest of the card. But the fact that this is even being discussed on top of what's already been announced is great. I'm super excited for the show, and I can't wait to see what AEW and New Japan give us for Forbidden Door, which is going to be an all-time event in our lifetime. And it's going to be fucking awesome. I can't wait to see what they do for that show. Speaking of CM Punk, apparently CM Punk did not move many tickets at all after the main event for the first ever Collision was announced this past Wednesday on Dynamite. The main event, like I just told you, will be Bullet Club Gold versus CM Punk and FTR. The match will mark the very first time that Punk has made an appearance on AEW programming since last September after the all-out pay-per-view and the brawl that happened with the Elite after the post-show scrum. And he did win the World Heavyweight Championship on that night from Jon Moxley, only to give it up and require surgery for a major injury. Now, Punk has helped ticket sales for the Chicago show. He has. Don't listen to anybody and tell you that he's not a draw. He absolutely is. But the rest of the Collision shows are still struggling to sell tickets in Canada, which at this time of the year is going to be a very difficult thing for Tony Khan and AEW to do. I don't think that there's a solid way to watch AEW in Canada, so there's a couple of things working against AEW right now. I don't know why anybody would pinpoint CM Punk as the reason why they're not selling tickets or labeling him as not a draw. I don't really understand that narrative. But WrestleTix, which does a great job on their Patreon tracking ticket sales, noted that only 167 tickets were sold since the announcement of the Collision main event on this past Wednesday's Dynamite featuring CM Punk. The show was set up for 10,214 seats, with 8,233 tickets sold, with 1,981 left still to sell. I'm going to ask this very calmly and very peacefully. I don't know why people are so obsessed with ticket sales. Fans, why is social media so obsessed with ticket sales? The only thing that I can honestly think of is AEW pushing the narrative early on in their infancy stage when they were just getting started. Oh, we're going to beat Raw in a few years in the ratings, and we're going to have a bigger demo than WWE in the 18 to 49, and we're going to sell this out, and we're going to sell this out. AEW set themselves up by basically shooting for the stars early on, and then things have kind of, I don't want to say flatlined, but they've kind of hit a decline in certain markets and with certain shows. And when something like this shows up in the news, people are going to claim, oh, AEW's dying, or AEW's not the talk of the town anymore, and AEW's not the belle of the ball anymore. They're not the hot ticket in town. But it's the middle of the summer, and a lot of things are working against AEW with this show in general. They're going to be going up against massive competition on a Saturday night. They're going to be going up against UFC, all major sports. WWE has their premium live events ingrained on a Saturday night now, right? The summertime, and nobody's going to want to watch pro wrestling in the summer for, you know, the other things that they could be doing, the beach, hanging out with friends, going out to drink, going out to eat, the nice weather. It doesn't get dark until 9 o'clock. People don't want to be home on a Saturday night. I'll be home because I have to cover the show, and this is how I make my living. But most of you guys are going to rely on us, the podcasters, the YouTube wrestling content creators, to fill you in on what happened with Collision. So I don't mind that at all. But the narrative that Punk is not selling this out, Punk is obviously a draw for AEW. How many times also does AEW go back to Chicago? How many times have they run Chicago? We've been through this CM Punk song and dance before. This is not like he's making his triumphant return after 7 years. It's not the hottest ticket in town. They've seen CM Punk come back. If they want to see CM Punk wrestle, there'll be other opportunities for them to see CM Punk wrestle. This is not as big of a deal as it was, even though AEW is going to try and make it out to be. This is not as big of a deal as him coming back after 7 years and him returning to pro wrestling. This is just him coming back after some shitstorm that he caused with everybody else in the company that caused this brawl-out situation to occur. Everybody acted immature. How many times can you see CM Punk wrestle? How many times can you get excited about CM Punk making a return? We got the first dance, and now this is his return back. I mean, how many times can you sell it as the biggest deal and the most must-see, can't-miss moment? How many of those people are still fucking pissed off at CM Punk for basically going and doing what he did and turning his back on the fans? A lot of people are probably looking at CM Punk and thinking, well, I don't want to support this immature prick. I don't want to support this guy. He did what he did to my company, this beloved company that I invested all my time into. He comes in and shows everybody exactly what he is. He's a fucking monster. He's a troublemaker. Drama. I don't care for the drama. How many people are in that camp? How many people just don't find any interest in watching CM Punk wrestle because of what he did and have turned their back against CM Punk and turned their back against AEW? There's a lot of people out there that feel that same way. There's a lot of people that won't watch Collision because CM Punk is affiliated with the show. You'll just stick to watching Dynamite. Or maybe you just gave up on AEW altogether. These are talking points, incredible talking points that really need to be taken into consideration here. So I don't want to sit here and tell you that CM Punk is not a draw. He absolutely is a draw. But there's a lot working against AEW with this Collision show right from the word go. So I don't know why everybody is making a big deal about ticket sales. If you enjoy the show, enjoy the show. I don't know why ticket sales matter to you, the casual fan. If the wrestling is great, that's all that matters. If you enjoy the show, that's all that matters. I don't give a fuck how many people are there. As long as the crowd is loud and energetic, I don't give a fuck how many people are there. Just make some noise when I'm watching it on TV and give me the excitement that I want watching from home. That's all I care about. Ratings and demos and ticket sales. There is a core audience on social media that use this to just gaslight how AEW is on the decline, and they use it in the war of AEW versus WWE. They are better than AEW, and AEW is better than WWE. I mean, give me a fucking break. There's nothing for you else. There's nothing for you guys to do in life but this. There's nothing else that entertains you. It's ridiculous. That's why I urge everybody to stay off social media, man. The IWC is one of the most toxic communities in any sport genre, period. And finally, guys, last night on SmackDown, we got news that WWE is going to unify the Women's Tag Team Championships. The NXT Women's Tag Team Championships are merging with the main roster Women's Tag Team Championships. In a segment last night, NXT Women's Tag Team Champions Isla Dawn and Alba Fire went out to the ring before they were interrupted by Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey, who are the WWE main roster Women's Tag Team Champions. They noted that the division wasn't big enough for both teams, and they want to unify both sets of titles. Once the challenge was answered, a fight broke out between both teams, with Isla Dawn and Alba Fire standing tall over the team of Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Now, in response to a fan on Twitter replying to Boozer's tweet, the insider on Twitter, BWE, he goes by the name now Better Wrestling Experience, in a Twitter reply to his tweet, a fan tweeted him, and BWE noted that the idea to unify the titles is from WWE CEO Nick Khan, as it now fits his narrative and is part of his vision to make NXT a legitimate third brand, which I find to be fucking hilarious. He wants to make it a third brand and not developmental. I mean, you blew up the fucking show from what Triple H was doing, which was clearly unnecessary, and now WWE is actually admitting that it was unnecessary. And it proves my point even further. What happened is that Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard and People Power blew it up because Triple H failed at stopping AEW's momentum. It's basically what it was. They used it against Triple H and then punished him because Vince saw Triple H failing against AEW on Wednesday nights with NXT. It wasn't working, pal. We're going to blow up your show and then goodbye. WWE sending Seth Rollins to NXT to feud with Braun Breaker is also part of Nikons Strategy, as this was talked about this week, as Braun Breaker challenged Seth Rollins on this past Tuesday's NXT. And it is a strategy, a desperate strategy, by the way, because everybody knows NXT sucks. And nobody's watching NXT on Tuesday night. They're not generating any interest. They're not making new fans. You've lost that faith. You lost that trust in that fan base long ago. And you are never getting it back. So now WWE is going the desperate route by including main roster talent on NXT to help boost the ratings because they have a contract negotiation period coming up with NBC Universal, which houses Monday Night Raw and NXT on Monday and Tuesday night. That's the only reason why they're doing it. So Nick Khan can play this off as it's his strategy to make NXT a third brand, a legitimate third brand, and not a developmental. But we all know why you're doing it. Because you want to sucker more money out of NBCU for a dying fucking brand that should have never been killed in the first place. So he wants Rollins to defend the title on Tuesday night against Braun Breaker. Desperate. Now WWE, they're using this. This is Nick Khan's strategy to help boost NXT as a third brand. How about just making things make sense and making what you're doing on Monday and Friday logical? There was no reason to call up Alba Fire and Isla Dawn as NXT Tag Team Champions when you have Tag Team Champions on the fucking show right now with Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey. What do you need two sets of Tag Team Champions for? I'm going to go a step further and say, why did we need the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships to begin with? So what are they going to do now? They're going to merge the titles. This match is happening 2 weeks from now on Friday, 2 weeks from now. And WWE is going to have Ronda and Shayna win that match. Of course, you think Isla Dawn and Alba Fire are going to beat Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler after they just won the titles, and Alba Fire and Isla Dawn have been holding these titles, keeping them warm for Shayna and Ronda all this time? 7 weeks it took for them to come to a decision. 7 weeks. This could have been a decision made 7 weeks ago, as soon as they got called up from NXT for the WWE draft. So Ronda and Shayna are going to win these titles. They're going to go to Tuesday night. And because there's no tag team division on the main roster, I don't know where you're going to manufacture tag teams on Tuesday night. They're going to go to Tuesday night and they're going to wrestle and defend those women's tag team championships on Raw, on SmackDown, and on NXT. And they're going to float, which is something that I suggested they did before they created the NXT women's tag team titles years ago. Why did we need two sets when you could have did this same thing that you're doing now years ago with the main roster tag team titles? So WWE wants main roster stars on Tuesday night. We got Baron Corbin, we got Ali, we got Ronda, we got Shayna. We're going to get Seth Rollins, and we've seen AJ Styles and Dolph Ziggler before. Jinder Mahal was down there. So what they're doing is they're going to make NXT feel like everything else, and it's not going to be a brand that stands out on its own anymore because they're going to try and main roster it up to generate interest, boost ratings, and help them get a TV deal because they want NXT to remain on USA Network on Tuesday nights. I don't know why you couldn't just go and keep the same NXT that we loved with the black and gold, which was a third brand. Triple H always called it a third brand. Vince and Bruce never wanted to hear it was a third brand because Triple H was doing that better than Vince and Bruce were on Monday and Friday. So then Triple H has to go out there and force, say, because Bruce and Vince wanted him to, a forced third brand. No, it's not the third brand anymore. He was forced to say it was developmental. Oh yeah, AEW beat our developmental system. Good for them. It wasn't a developmental system when you were there. It was not a developmental system. It may have been in spirit, but what you showed on television and with every takeover, it was not a developmental system. It was basically the way the main roster should have been run. So he was forced to say it was the developmental system because Vince and Bruce would have no other way because he failed. This pisses me off. This entire story pisses me off. Main roster tag team titles are going to be on NXT, and that's part of Nikon's vision to make NXT a legitimate third brand. I wish these people would just go away. Everything that they did, they destroyed, and now they want to go back on what they did after they destroyed the best thing in the entire company. I hate it. I fucking hate it. But that's the way it is. Nikon, and for all the geeks, a little patience. This is what they were always planning. No, this is not what they were planning. They planned it this week. They came up with this conclusion this week because it's a part of Nikon's vision, which he talked about this week. Plans. If they planned for it, it would have been done already and wouldn't have to wait 7 weeks to get to this conclusion. Anyway, guys, I'm getting out of here. I appreciate you very much for hanging out with me today on this Saturday afternoon. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Let's try for 1,000 likes minimum today on OTS. Follow me on social media at JD from NY206, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Cameo. Hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell for notifications. Go check out all the other content on the channel. It is all on the homepage. If you want to check out my SmackDown review last night, sponsored by DraftKings, go and check that out and everything else that you might have missed. And I will be back in your sub boxes tomorrow with more news to round out your week right here on Off the Script. Have a great Saturday, guys, and I'll see you right back here on Sunday for more OTS.